Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today is Monday morning and I'm recording before work. I waited until it was, the sun was up and stuff, and so it's 8:15 or something, and it's very gray and rainy, so I don't think there's a ton of natural light coming in, but I tried. So got my smoothie. This is not kale today. I bought spinach last week because Jordan and I were out of the regular frozen fruit mix that we get from Costco, which is the tropical one, which is mangoes and peaches and pineapples and strawberries. And we still had some berries, and I was like, okay, we'll supplement this with bananas because they're cheap. But I don't like bananas in smoothies, so I was like, okay, I'll just get the bananas, I'll get some spinach, and I'll just put some peanut butter in there. And I decided to use milk instead of orange juice because the orange juice won't go well with those other things, like peanut butter. And I made that and it was delicious, but it was the reason that I drink a smoothie is so that there's a ton of fruit in it and not a lot of heavy stuff. I don't put protein powder in my smoothies anymore because it makes me feel gross. And I'm yeah, I need a light smoothie. So it was delicious, but I was this is not the move. So we went to Costco and got the regular blend, but I missed the kale, but the spinach is almost gone and I have to use some of it in a dish that I'm making in a couple nights. I follow this person on Instagram called Half Baked Harvest, which was a recommendation from one of my friends in Vermont, and she does reels of how to cook things. That noise is the dishwasher, by the way, sorry. But she I find a lot of recipe inspiration from her, but I never actually cook the recipes. So I was this week I'm gonna make one of them. And there was one last week that was chicken and orzo in a creamy sauce with tomatoes, sun-dried tomatoes and spinach. And I was that looks delicious. So I'm gonna make that. And I was I have all those things. I have chicken breast from Costco and I have spinach and I have sun-dried tomatoes. The only thing I need is orzo, so I have to go get that. But otherwise, I have half and half for my coffee. So I was excited to see that it was something that I could make with almost all ingredients that we already had. Yeah, I am wearing a Radari sweater. I say a Radari sweater because I made 3 or 4 of these. I don't have all of them. I only have this one, but this is made with McCausland's 2-ply, I think. It's from Prince Edward Island. If I were to compare it to another yarn, I would say it is very similar to Briggs and Little Regal. So it's a 2-ply woolen spun, light-ish worsted weight. Somebody brought this from PEI for me, many years ago. I mean, this 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I really like it. It's very cozy. I like the color a lot. I think it's a different color palette than I would have necessarily picked because I didn't pick out the colors, but I like it a lot. I think it's a little different. This sweater gets a lot of compliments, so apparently it looks good. It fits me really, really well, a little oversized. I made this is one of the sweaters I made in the first year that I was making these Lopi sweaters, Lopa Pesas. This obviously isn't made with Lopi, but it's a Lopa Pesas style. It's from a Lopi book. I will link Radari pattern in the show notes in the description box if you would like to buy the pattern. You can get it as an individual pattern on Ravelry, or you can get it in I have it in one of those spiral bound Lopi books that my mom brought me back from Alberta because Mrs. Francis gave it to her. And if you're wondering who Mrs. Francis is, a few episodes ago I did a chat with my mom and my grandma. Mrs. Francis is my grandma's 92-year-old neighbor who knits like a crazy person still. She used to knit, she knitted sweaters for me when I was a baby and a toddler, and she still knits. She's 92, so I hope to meet Mrs. Francis someday. My grandma's always yeah. She's sometimes I go over and have tea, but she just talks at me because she can't hear anything anymore. And I'm that's gonna be me someday. I'm just gonna talk at everyone and I will never take in anything. It's kind of like this. But yeah, okay, so I'm just kind of rambling. I was I don't have a ton of stuff to talk about or show or whatever. And then I was that's a lie. I have plenty of things. I feel this year is one of those because I decided to do the intentional knitting. I say that with air quotes for I don't know what reason. I am working through projects that are gonna take a couple months. So probably see them like through their progress, but a lot of people like have those YouTube channels where that's what they share. Like they share their whips, and like it takes a while and you get to see like the whole process of something being done. So, you know, it'll be more like that. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of spinning and stuff this year too. But yeah, okay, so where to start? Let's start with the Brooklyn tweed cardigan that I started. Okay, so last week, if you'll recall, I had started the back piece of the Long Road cardigan. I'm going to show you. So the Long Road cardigan is in this book, Contrasts by Made UKP from Lina, which you can get, well, wherever you get your Lina publications. I will link the Woolly Thistles version because I get everything from them, and you should too, because they're the best. Well, I'm biased because I work with them, but anyway, this is the Long Road hoodie / cardigan. This one's got a hood and it's really long. I would like to put a hood on mine, and I have 11 skeins of Brooklyn tweed shelter and button jar, so I'm not sure how long I can actually make the cardigan if I want to put a hood on it. So we will see, because this is really long, but I don't need it to be that long. I also don't really care about pockets, so like that's fine. Is there a picture of the cropped cardigan somewhere? Probably. No, it's the pullover. Sorry. There's pictures at the beginning. There's a picture of the back with the hood. That's pretty nice. There's the cropped one. Okay, there's also a pullover version of this in here, which is on the cover. And there's also a hat. So if you want to try out the stitch pattern, there's a great opportunity for that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So last week I had the back piece done, like basically to the underarm split, and then I was like, I think it's too small. If you want to hear the whole saga, you can go watch that. I don't want to say it again because it'll just bore people. But so I took it out and I started it again, and then like the first day and a half, I just like ripped through it. Like I absolutely tore through this knitting, and I finished the entire back piece up to the underarm split and the 2 front pieces, and I joined them. And I was like, it still looks small. And Monica, who knits with my friend Monica, she does a lot of Brooklyn tweed shelter, and she knits a lot of cabled things, and she was like, the cables will relax. And I was like, I think the cables will relax. And she was like, they will. Just like, keep going, it'll be fine. And I was like, I'm gonna block it just to see. So I put it on barber cords, and if you don't have barber cords, you should get some, because they are like, it's like a silicone cord that with a hollow middle that you put on the end of your needle, and then you slide the stitches on there, and then it like frees up your needle so you can like try it on, or you can block something or whatever. So it's now back on a needle. They did relax. I tried it on and it was like much less tight around me. So you can see this is the relaxed part, and then like there's some rounds down here that aren't blocked. As you can see, they're pulling in a little bit more, and they're like not laying as flat. So yeah, it's also really soft after being blocked. So this is a pretty simple cable pattern, and I was like not sure. I mean, I didn't think about that because I didn't read the pattern. I could have, because I owned this book, but I didn't read the pattern before I started like working on it. And I realized when I started that there were only 2 main cable panels. There's a 3rd cable panel that's like so simple that just goes down the side seams, which you can barely see here. Like there's just little cable V's, just little twisted stitches. But there's just this type, and then there's this type, and there's like, this is B, and there's like a B1 and a B2, which are the same. It's just like, it's going that way or it's going that way first. And both of these cables are intuitive. So you don't actually need the cable chart at all after you get it started, and you've done it a couple of times, because you know exactly where it needs to go, which is amazing. And also this yarn is so sticky and the cables are so simple, it's just like 2x2 crosses all the time, that you don't need a cable needle. So I think this was the best possible way to get back into cable sweaters, because the yarn is delightful. It's sticky enough that I don't have to use a cable needle, and the cables themselves are simple and easy to memorize. So for me, this was the ideal thing, and I didn't even know that before I started, but I'm glad. So yeah, it looks like this now. As you can see, it does seem to go over my body in like the correct way. Not too small. So yeah, really, really excited about this. Look at the stitch definition of this Brooklyn tweed. It's so good. It's so good. Just like, was that a knock at the door? Somebody's supposed to come snake Jordan's sink today. It's like been like giving us trouble since we moved in. Jordan and I share a bathroom and we have 2 sinks. So my sink has never had any problems, but hers has had a lot of like draining problems. And so someone's supposed to come finally, because they kept just telling us to snake it and we did, and it like doesn't really do anything. Like it fixes the problem like momentarily, and then like 3 weeks later it'll start like not draining again. And I'm like, I think we need someone to come and actually clean this out. Anyway, so this went on hold for a few days while I washed it, but now it's been dried, and I worked on it on like Saturday. I was talking to my mom on the phone for a couple hours, and I worked on this the whole time. And I didn't work on it on Sunday because I actually was home on Sunday for a bit, but I was cleaning the house with the girls. I subbed at a church on Sunday in the morning, and then I came home and we did some cleaning, and like Jordan and I went to Ace Hardware to get keys cut, like extra keys for our friends that we've been procrastinating this task for like 14 months since we've moved in. But now we have 4 extra keys. I've been really like wanting to do this because I like to go running, and I don't like when I go running, if it's the summer, I can't bring anything with me because nothing has a pocket. Like I have a big keychain, and I'm like, I'm not gonna bring my huge keychain to go running. But I don't want to just like leave my keys in the mailbox, because what if somebody just comes and like steals them and goes into our house or steals my car? So I've been meaning to get just like a single key that I can, because if you have like the Lululemon shorts or something, you can like tuck it into the little waistband pocket or like the zipper pocket on the back of the shorts. Like it's secure, but I'm like, all I need is a key, because I don't even bring, I guess sometimes I bring my phone. I need to get a new armband. Like if I have like a phone armband, I can bring that so I can listen to music. But usually I just go, I don't need music if I'm going to run around Fed Hill or something. So anyway, and then I was gonna knit in the afternoon. I went out for the evening, but I was gonna knit in the afternoon, and then I have this issue with my bedroom with the Wi-Fi signal, because we live in a row house and my bedroom is in the back, and so the Wi-Fi signal doesn't reach well enough in there. But like usually I can use the Xfinity Wi-Fi signal from outside, because we have an Xfinity Wi-Fi router, which means you just log into Xfinity on your phone or your tablet or your computer, and it works because you pay for an Xfinity service, so they give you, by extension, Xfinity everywhere, which is really nice. It's like a huge perk of having an Xfinity Wi-Fi service, Comcast, whatever. Although I recognize that is like a big brand, and like I don't love that, but like it's cheap for 2 years, and so we have that because we're young and we can't afford fancy local Wi-Fi. So that usually works in my bedroom. At least it works on my iPad, and it hasn't been working like the entire weekend. It just like wasn't working, and I was so frustrated because I just wanted to watch like a show alone in my bedroom, and it wasn't working. So instead I just read a book, and I finished it. I finished The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which actually I really liked. It was really intense. It's about like 2 sisters during World War II in occupied France. It's super good, but it's like kind of terrifying and definitely like an intense read. So I was reading it before bed. It actually does help me to read something before I fall asleep instead of being on my phone. Like the first like 5 nights I read this book, I slept so well. And then like, I think it was Saturday night, finally like the plot clearly had like gotten enough into my head that it just like I got like these stress dreams that I was like escaping, you know, from Nazis and like all sorts of things. So I'm glad it's over, because it's now over and I don't have to have stress dreams about it anymore. And I started reading A Prayer for Owen Meany, which I've had it on my shelf for a long time, and I've been meaning to read it for years because it's about someone who goes to Toronto and becomes an Anglican, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that, I understand that. Also, apparently there's like a scene that takes place at Trinity College in Toronto, which is where I went to college. So that's fun. I used to live there at Trinity. Obviously I lived in Toronto for 4 years, but Trinity College was where I lived. So what else am I working on? There's a whole bag. Okay. So the other day when the green cardigan was blocking, I started this yellow cardigan for Jordan in a yarn that was given to me by a viewer, very nice viewer named Pam. Pam, if you're watching this, thank you. And I am knitting something with this beautiful yellow yarn. There was like 2 huge 250 gram skeins of this like Colorwork silk yarn. At some point I will show the tag because I have a second huge skein of it and it still has the band on the skein band. I feel like I showed it some time ago, but I can't remember which episode, so I can't link it. Anyway, I'm making the Long Road cardigan, that's that one. The Visiting cardigan by Stella Ackroyd, which is something that I've already made. I made it in Wensleydale long wool. Erin from the Wensleydale Sheep Shop, but I wanted to make it again because it was so satisfying. And so this one I'm not making in pieces, I'm just making it in one big piece, and I'm gonna separate back and fronts because it's already worked back and forth. Something about me is that I don't like to work things in the round and then back and forth once you split for the sleeves. I don't like that because it changes your gauge a lot sometimes to like work where you were working in stockinette, like in the round, like knit stitches on top of knit stitches. If you go and switch and do it flat, you're then working purl stitches on top of knit stitches. And most people don't have the same tension knitting and purling. And so that can, like if you do that, the whole sweater, that's okay because the whole sweater will be the same. You've purled on top of all the knit stitches and vice versa. But if you switch from one to the other, that often is like just makes your tension weird and you have to like change needle sizes and you should swatch in the round and flat and like that's really annoying. And so I just like to avoid that if I can. So yeah. I'm making this pullover or this cardigan just all back and forth with all of the body stitches here. And then once I get to the split, I will do the fronts and the back separately and then graft them and pick up the stitches around and probably work the sleeves flat as well because then I'll have the same tension. Might work them in the round just for ease because once you block it, it's like hard to notice. But my mom had this issue, which she might have talked about when she was on my channel, where she has this cardigan that she made and she knitted it back and forth in this like alpaca silk blend that I dyed. It has these really nice slip stitch like panels, like diagonal lines on the front. And when she went to work the sleeves, the tension was so much neater because she was working and just stockinette in the round. And she was like, well, it looks really good, but the rest of the sweater doesn't look like that. So I want it to look like the rest of the sweater because if it's gonna look like crap, at least the whole thing will look uniform. So she knitted the sleeves back and forth as well, which is like a huge pain in the butt, and sewed them up. And then she blocked it and it looked beautiful. Like it looked exactly like it would have looked if she'd worked the sleeves in the round. So yeah, I guess that's the lesson there. So I'm probably gonna end up finishing the body and like upper part, like I would call that the yoke, but it's not a yoke. I guess it is a yoke of this cardigan, grafting the shoulders, and then I probably will block it because it's better to block something before you pick up stitches. So for both a button band and a sleeve, I would pick up stitches, and so I would ideally block something before I did either of those things. So yeah, I'll probably block it anyway then, and then we'll be able to see if how the tension kind of settles. The other one that I made in the long wool, that does really look like the stitches don't look that even. I don't know how it would look if I had knitted it like in the round, like with the knits on top of the knits. But this one looks way more even than that one did. And I think that's just the nature of the yarn and the wool and the breed and how it's spun, like how much twist is in the yarn, how much bounce, all that kind of thing. And then that's all gonna affect how it ends up blocking. So that's my spiel on that. So I'm trying to work on this periodically before bed as well, while I listen to audiobooks, and then I read my actual book, and then I go to sleep. So I'm excited about that. Okay, next project. I have some new socks to show here. These are not new, but like, I don't know if I showed them before. This is John Arbin Exmoor sock in the colorway Bell Heather, which you can get at the Woolly Thistle. These are my Kitty Bennett socks. So my Jane Bennett socks are gonna come out like probably this week, which is very exciting. But these will probably come out in March. So I was gonna do like one sock pattern per month this year, but then I am probably gonna release a Colorwork pattern in February for the Woolly Thistle's Colorwork cowl. And I just thought, it's kind of too much. Like, I would rather, and because the reason it's like, I would say partially that it's too much is it's actually really stressful to knit all these samples that fast. So, because I always knit my own, like I knit like 4 to 5 samples for each sock, I always knit my own. Because I'm not fancy enough to like have, I mean, I have test knitters, but like for sample knitting, I just knit them all myself. I knitted obviously tons of them last year, but I didn't knit all of the socks like in all of the samples that I wanted because it's spiraling so that I can use like the Jane Austen collection from Matt Haynes' house yarns and also like a yarn from the Woolly Thistle every month so that they can have kits and like a yarn from that I dyed and then like a DK weight. So there's like a lot of samples and I'm really enjoying knitting all of them, but I was like, okay, we're just gonna like maybe do these ones in March and then gives me February to knit the next final, hopefully, sample of this one. And it's a beautiful green color. And then the March or the Catherine Morland socks will come out in like April or May and we'll see. So, cause then now I have a bunch of Colorwork patterns that I also would like to release, like accessories. So we'll see what happens. So speaking of Colorwork accessories, I'm gonna show you something that I started. I don't think I showed this. Maybe I did. Maybe I showed it a couple weeks ago. I don't think so. Regardless. Okay, so I have this hand spun. I feel like I did show this, but maybe it doesn't matter. I have this hand spun from Nest Fiber Club from like October. I don't know what it's called, but it's pretty. I can find the name, but like you can't get it anymore because it was a club color. And this is just like a weight. I think it's Border Leicester 2-ply DK-ish from, I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I have like a bunch of them. And I was gonna make a sweater with it, but then once I started doing hand spun, I was like, no, I'm just gonna use those with hand spun for whatever I want them for. Because you can always just get more white yarn. Especially at a Sheep and Wool festival, which is coming up in May. So I thought I'd pair these together and make a, like a worsted weight, kind of the tighter type of cowl. And I might gonna line it with like, it's like mohair and fingering weight or something. So it's really soft on the neck. So I chose a pattern from Selbu Patterns. It's hard to see it, but oh, there's the, sorry, I don't know how much knocking I was able to edit out there, but our contractor Henry just showed up to fix Jordan's sink. So anyway, I've clearly lost the stitch marker for this because a bunch of stitches have fallen out, which is fun. I should use stoppers. I have stoppers, I just never use them. The thing about those foam stoppers is that they don't, people are always like, they don't hold a memory, but they do hold a memory because if you put like the orange ones on a size, or the, let's say the, I don't know, green ones or whatever, on like a size 7 needle, you can't then put that on a size 5 needle because they'll fall off. Or they'll go on and they won't like necessarily fall right off, but they'll slide off so easily that if you like move it, anyway. So this is, there's a big Selbu star, and then in the middle there's just kind of this, oh, that's gonna come off again, but that's fine. There's like this, it's really hard to see that, but there's like a thing that goes around the Selbu star that's like little squares. I'm gonna try and finish another repeat of this week so that I can show it next week and like you can see what I'm actually talking about. But I used the Selbu Patterns book to find a pattern for this. Just like a Colorwork pattern, which is great. All of those public patterns are in the public domain. That is made very clear in the introduction. That's why the person was able to write the book, basically, because all the patterns were in the public domain. So you can use those patterns to create your own patterns from those. Anyway, so yeah. All right, he fixed the sink. It was just full of hair. We weren't sure if there was like more stuff in there that was like you know, clogging it from the inside to make the hole smaller, and then if hair got in, it would like, you know, block the whole thing. But Henry said it was just hair, so that's good to know. It's always good to know what's clogging a sink. But anyway, sorry, I'm just obsessively putting these stitches back on the needles because they keep falling off, so I just need to stop playing with it. But anyway, yeah, I'll try to do another repeat of that this week so you can see it. And I'm, you know, making an effort to knit more with my hand spun, so I think this is a good fun project for that. I'm gonna see if the stitch markers in here. I don't like, there must be like a law of conservation of mass of stitch markers. Like they must all go somewhere, right? Like obviously they do, but like this was just in a bag and then a bunch of stitches fell off. Like where would the stitch marker have gone? It must have fallen off before it went into the bag or when I yanked it out, and it's now God knows where around here. But yeah, this is a Hohi & Co. BA bag, by the way. Hard to see the Hohi & Co. I use this for, you know, whatever, 2 skein projects, but I have the same color in the EPA pouch, which I use for all my needles and notions and stuff. Like not knitting needles, but like darning needles and scissors and like stitch markers and like a little, you know, your little notions bag. That I use the BA bag for that. And it's really good because they're suede on the outside, and so nothing can poke through. Like even if you have sharp scissors, they won't poke through. So that's really helpful. Okay, so I am getting into spinning content now. This is gonna be a short episode, probably, because I gotta go to work and I've been interrupted twice now, but for a good reason, because the sink was gross. Okay, so I showed this, you've seen the progress of this, but I did show you this last week. It's finally all dry. And I finished the other spins. So this is just a combo spin. If you missed last week's episode or the week before, it's just a combo spin with like a bunch of just like random scraps. I did a barber pole spin. And this is the yarn that I made to go with it. So this is John Arbin Yarnadelic in Harmonium top. I didn't purchase this as yarn. I purchased it as top and I spun it. And this is the first yarn that I've made that actually I feel like looks the most like a commercial yarn. Like it's not all the exact same thickness, but it's like pretty close and the twist is good. Like it's a balanced yarn. And so I was like very excited about that. I will say though that I did weigh the 2 halves of the top, and yet one bobbin had 15 grams on it when I was done. And so this only weighs 85 grams. But it is like 340 yards or something, and so the grist is like such that if I had actually had 100 full grams of the skein, it would have been like a 400 yard skein, which is really exciting. It's so shiny. And anyway, I'm gonna use these to make an inclinations cowl by Andrea Mowry, and I think I'm not gonna run out of this, but if I do, I have like some teal and like that I also spun, and this has a lot of teal in it as well, so I'll just change it to the teal and it'll be fun, and who cares? So maybe I'll just alternate them, but no, I'm trying to use like a lot of yarn at once. So anyway, but yeah, I don't know if I weighted incorrectly, which obviously can happen, or if I spun thinner on the second bobbin, and so there was just like, or the first bobbin, so there was just like more left because the yarn was thinner, but I chain plied the rest. So I tend to chain ply if I have like 10 to 20 grams left on a bobbin, just to practice my chain plying, but also that just makes a ton of little chain plied mini skeins. And so eventually I'll just like make a blanket or something from all of my chain plied leftovers from bobbins. Some of them are like this, like they're like combo spins. And so they're like crazy self-striping or striped. It is self-striping if you do that, actually. It's not barber pulled because it's a chain ply, means that's how you make a self-striping yarn. But anyway, I digress. Sorry, I haven't really had anything to eat this morning. Actually, I did eat some pumpkin bread. I made pumpkin bread on Saturday night. It was really good. It was kind of dry. I think I baked it for just a little bit too long, but I almost never use a microwave unless I'm like melting something to bake or cook with, like melting butter. But I use it, and I use it for a timer because it's our kitchen timer. And I use it as a clock, and to defrost meat. But I put this pumpkin bread in the microwave, and the reason I don't like using the microwave to reheat things is because it makes them all soggy. but I want the pumpkin bread to be a little bit more moist. And so if you put it in the microwave, it is the right consistency of like the moist, pumpkin bread that you want. So there's no butter in it. So I wonder if that's part of it, the reason, but there are eggs and there's oil. So like, yeah, but it's not super unhealthy. There's not that much sugar in it, which is good. There's a lot of spices. It's super tasty. I will link my recipe in the show notes. I use the King Arthur sourdough discard pumpkin bread because I have a sourdough starter that I feed in the winter regularly. And it says to use like walnuts and raisins, which we don't have. I would put raisins in it. I might put like pecans in it, but I don't really like walnuts in baked goods. I only really like them in trail mix, which is just my weirdness. So I put chocolate chips in instead, and it is delicious. So anyway, okay, but I do have a new spin on my wheel. By the way, I spun both of these, all the singles for these, on the actual wheel that I have, Thelma, my matchless from 1988, and I applied them on Louise, which is my e-spinner. I have an EEW electric eel wheel 6.0 from Dreaming Robots, which I will link in the show notes. So, next spin. This is a Targhee from Blend, or not Blend, this is 100% Targhee from Nest Fibers. This is just their club colorway from December that they sent me at the end of December. It's called like Andromeda. I feel like it's Andromeda something else, but I don't remember what the other word is. This is braided, so you obviously see it all exciting, but here I'll undo it so you can see the gradient. It's super fun. So oranges and pinks and blues, basically. It's two different blues, which is fun. There's like a periwinkle and a sky blue. So I have this much left of the second half of it. And this is the first bobbin. And so I'm actually doing this one fractal in a way. So you can see that this one ended up with like a bunch of the blues. There's not actually that much blue in this fiber, but like the blue all ended up here. And then you can see some oranges and pinks here. So the, technically a fractal spin would be, and I recently learned this, I don't know why I didn't think to like Google it. It's like if you have the full thing like this, you break it in half lengthwise, which is like, so you've got two pieces that are you didn't tear it down this way, you just broke it like that. And then, I guess there's probably not like one single way to do this, but this is my understanding of how to spin fractal. And then you take like this one and you just spin it from this end to this end. You don't break it up. You just spin like across the top, so the colors all stay together. And the second one, you tear in half lengthwise and you do one all the way down and then the other one all the way down. And then if you do a third bobbin, you tear the other piece into 4 and you do the same thing so that your colors are changing at twice the rate each bobbin. I broke mine into like 6. So I have one that's just going all the way straight down, and then the first bobbin is in like 5 or 6 pieces going all the way down. So it's not like a real fractal spin, but the reason people do that is so that the barber poles are constantly changing, but sometimes you still see the same color with the same color. But it's like one's changing really slowly and one's changing fast, so that usually you'll see like frequent enough color changes, but it's not like super like stark color changes are obvious because one of them is changing super, super slowly. So one of them stays kind of slow and one of them goes really quickly, color changes, so that it does produce a kind of gradient effect. Like it kind of makes cohesive sense all together as a skein, I guess, when you're knitting it, I guess. But now I realize I got kind of off track the first time Henry came in because I was talking about the long road. Maybe it was like just that I went on my own tangent. And then I forgot. But anyway, so this is the first of the like big intentional projects that I want to make with cables, as I kind of just like challenge myself to knit more cabled garments this year. Because I don't mind cables. I think all knitting is lovely and fun. And I'm good at it. I just don't usually do it because it takes longer. And so I'm trying to get myself to do things that take longer because A, I have a lot of sweaters. I don't need to be producing them at an insanely fast rate. And B, it's really satisfying when you finish a project that's taken a long time. So Monica and I are gonna do a knit along for Jared Flood's Svensson sweater, which is a DK weight Brooklyn tweed pattern. That's like a honeycomb cable, so it's super beautiful. And there's a men's version and a women's version. And when I say that, I mean like a boxier version and then like a shaped version. So we might, I don't know, we already have the pattern for the shaped version, so we'll probably just do that one. But she has tons of yarn. She loves Brooklyn tweed yarn, and she got a bunch of it when they did the Together Apart sale, so she has a bunch of that. And I have, she gave me for my birthday, like, I think I showed this maybe once, like 7 skeins of like this light pink Croft Shetland DK from West Yorkshire Spinners. I think the wool comes from the Wool Brokers in Shetland, the Jameson & Smith, but it's spun by West Yorkshire Spinners. And so it's like it's kind of like Brooklyn Tweed Arbor, but the content is all Shetland wool. But it is worsted spun. And so that's a lot of yarn. Like that's like enough to make a big old cabled sweater. So I think we're gonna do we knit it at the same time. She's like, you'll beat me. And I'm like, no, you know, I have like 16 projects on the needles. Like, I don't think I'm gonna beat you. The last time we tried to do a knit along was for Brooklyn Tweed pattern. And it was yarn that I dyed us at the very beginning of COVID, like in March of 2020. I dyed us this yarn, this like matching 5 skein sets of fingering weight yarn. We were gonna make this pattern called Berenice, which I will link in the description box, that is also a Brooklyn Tweed pattern. And it has like a big lace panel down the front and like some like very simple cables here and like plain stockinette sleeves. Like it wouldn't actually be that complicated, but I was gonna like change the entire construction. So I was gonna do it in the round up to the sleeve split and then do it back and forth. And as I just said in this episode earlier, you shouldn't do that. Or I shouldn't, I tend not to do that anymore because it changes the gauge. But Monica did it in pieces. And then I think her mom probably seamed it together. Her mom is an amazing seamstress, and she sews a lot of Monica's things together and just like finishes them super beautifully. Amazing. I would love to have Cindy's skills. Anyway, so she finished it and I like finished like half of the body, and then I was like, Monica was like, you should do it in pieces because the rounds don't take as long. Like it's like rows instead of rounds. She's like, it doesn't take as long, so you accomplish a lot more, like more quickly. Like it looks like you've done a lot more, and you just have to do 2 pieces. And she's like, it's like a trick. I do everything in pieces because it's like easier like that. And I was like, that's wise. I might try that. So anyway, that's what's been going on. If you are a sock knitter, make sure to check out my Instagram Ravelry stuff announcements this week in case I probably will release the Jane Bennett socks this week sometime or early next week. So be on the lookout for announcements about that, and you should get my pattern because it has been a labor of love to knit all of these freaking socks. And I'm so excited to start releasing these patterns so that I don't have to knit any more samples. So maybe I'll knit someone else's sock patterns after 2024 when they're all released. So yeah, I'm stoked for the next week coming up. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna finish those pink socks, start the next sample of my Kitty Bennett socks, the final one, hopefully, knock on wood. Hopefully get something done on this Colorwork cowl. I totally did not start any hats, and I meant to because it was Nima's birthday, Jordan's boyfriend Nima's birthday, and I said I would make him a beanie. He has COVID, so like I am gonna have to wait anyway, but that's okay. I think he understands that knitting takes time, which is helpful. But we were gonna have a celebration for him in Frederick yesterday, and then we couldn't, which was kind of sad because he has COVID, but it's okay, we can reschedule it. I love going to Frederick because there's 2 yarn stores, but I also don't love buying yarn because it's expensive. And so like not going is kind of helpful because it means I don't buy any yarn. But I truly think the hallmark of like self-control for me is like being able to go into a knitting store and not buy any. So I like yarn, like I would like to buy something from them if I'm going to go into the store, because I feel like I should patronize the small business yarn shop, especially like Magpie, which is really nice, and the Knot House, which is basically a specialist in indie dyed yarn because they don't have any overlap. But you know, the whole point is that I don't need more stuff, and so like if I don't go I can't get any more stuff. And so sometimes it helps to just not go. So yeah, you know how it is. But I digress, and I gotta go to work. So like and subscribe. Check the description box for show notes if you're looking for any links to where you can find me or anything like that. Yeah, I'm getting noticed a bump in subscribers, and I meant to like introduce myself and explain this channel at the beginning, but I didn't, so I'll have to do that next week. If you're watching this long, you probably already know who I am. If you are new and you want to know about why I started this channel, go back to episode 1 because I explain it. And we're like almost at episode 100. It's been almost 2 years. So that's really wild. I haven't actually posted every week for 2 years because at the beginning it was kind of like sometimes I'd post like twice in a week and then I would wait like 3 months and not post anything at all. So it's been regular for like the last year and a half though. So because I was unemployed. After I was a nanny, I was unemployed for a few months. And so I did a lot of knitting, and that's when I started doing it weekly. And then I just kept doing it weekly because it was fun. So I still knit a lot, even though I have a full-time job. So I've said that a bunch of times. I've said so a ton of times, meaning to close this out. Thank you for watching. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Bye.